Man, big top 3.
Ooh, those are good.
Well, I don't feel like my blood pressure went up, but I did get elevated a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
You know why? Because there's all these little memories in the back of my brain going around and round and round. As these things are coming out of my mouth, I'm reliving these moments.
Well, it's good because I'm going to learn from that.
You are going to learn.
Like when we talk about, hey, let's talk about the fears you had the first time you bought your home. Boom. You might as well lay down on a couch and it's going to be a therapy session.
Talk of what? How many what?
Like the fears you had.
Oh, the fears.
The fears.
Oh, I thought you said how many beers did you have? Okay, I have a question. Who are you?
My name is...
No. Who are you? Because I just saw a document that had your legal name on it, and it looked redundant. I'm just curious, what is your name? Who are you?
Did it say Jamey James on it? That's what I put in Trek.
Yes. I'm like, what? So tell me, please, you don't have the same name twice.
No, I don't.
Oh,
so my
great.
first name is James.
And so you're not Eric, son of Eric.
No.
Got it.
I am JJ Whitley.
Wow. Are you serious?
No.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
What is your real legal name?
James.
Skip
middle name. Whitley.
Why did you skip the middle name?
Because, okay, so this... fine. We're going to break down and get vulnerable.
We're vulnerable.
All right. I love my name together, but there's a caveat to my name.
Your middle name is Caveat.
No.
Oh.
My middle name was named after my grandfather, whose name was Lawrence. It's short, so my middle name is Lauren, not Lauren. It's Lauren.
Oh, of course.
So my name is James Lawren, Lawren, Whitley. I love that. I love that name. Okay. But my whole life, people would call me Jamey Lauren, and I wanted to beat them in the face.
And you're big enough to do so.
And I do that. Anytime someone calls me that, as a disclaimer, I will hit them in the face.
Next podcast, folks, you get black guy. Because I'm going to give him hell. So, no, really, how do you spell it?
IT.
No. Your middle name, how is it spelled?
Lawren. So Lauren.
Okay.
Not Lauren.
So you should put the little thing, and it would be 2 syllables. Lauren.
Well, and also, too, so I go by Jamey. Everybody knows me as Jamey.
But your name is James.
My name is James.
So when did the EY come into play?
That's just how my parents spelled it when I was born. And also, it's also the masculine spelling of Jamey.
But you at one point, someone replaced the S with a Y. Your parents did that.
My parents did when I was born.
I got you.
My birth certificate says James Lauren Whitley.
I got it.
But they nicknamed me Jamey from day one.
So everything has always been monogrammed Jamey.
Yes.
Got it.
Except for legal documents.
Does anyone call you James?
You know, my girlfriend does.
Oh, that means you're in trouble.
No,
Yeah.
she does it kind of in the fun times too. Sometimes my sister will call me that, and just people that I've had as close friends have called me James, but really that's kind of about it. I'll answer to both. It's just whenever I had to fill out my license on Trek.
Yeah, for your real estate stuff. Trek is real estate stuff. Yeah.
Texas Real Estate Commission. Yeah. And so...
Bet that.
I wanted people to not see who's James Whitley and go, I don't know who that is, when everybody knows me in this area is Jamey Whitley. Yeah. So now to ask you the same question, what is your name?
I've seen already.
Blackout.
That's it. Mr. Green. In so many different languages, it could be different things. I don't know exactly. Oh, there's so many fun things about my name, but...
Well, we'll get to that next year.
That's no big deal. I'll tell you right now. My first name is Scott. If it's not Scottish, it's crap. So I used to say that a lot.
So is it officially Scott?
Yeah.
Legally, it's Scott.
Scott.
Okay.
Scott.
But you're a man of many names.
I am. They're just nicknames. So, and my middle name is Edward.
Yes.
Like Eduardo. Ooh. That sounds suave. Eduardo.
So that's where the SE comes in.
Yeah, but there's no, it's so funny. So many different stories around the name. But yeah, Scott Edwards, S-E, Green.
And we kind of touched on that like early on, kind of where the Edwards came in. And yeah.
The whole trying to be older than I was.
Business partner. And yeah.
So, but yeah, Scott Edward. I don't get called that very often. But I like it's a decent name. I'm happy with it.
I'm going to start calling you Scott Edward.
Yes. It's so astute. Like, it's very highbrow, and I'm not highbrow. Like,
Right.
I was wearing camo yesterday.
So why did you switch to just being SE? Because technically that's your name that you like to be called is SE. SE.
Yeah.
If you're not being called Senior Verde.
Right. And the reason is because in the corporate world, when I started that entity and it was SE, Green, Design and Construction, whatever, that's who I became in the public eye to vendors, customers, clients, and that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
And so you've got people on the inner circle calling me Scott, people that have known me 20 plus years, 25 years, my whole life, whatever. And my family calls me Scotty. Some of them do, some of them don't. I'm Uncle Scotty to some of them, and I don't care. But it's all good. But the general public, the business public that I dealt with on a professional level was SE. And so what I asked was that my inner circle would use the same name or same call sign, whatever you want to call it, because it was confusing when people would introduce me and no one had ever heard of Scott Green.
Yeah.
Oh, but they'd heard of SC Green, that person.
Right.
And so it was confused. So I just kind of started pushing more towards that corporate tag. And then, from the time I was 16, 17 on up until that little vacation where the girl lit up and said Senior Verde. In the construction industry, I've always been Senior Verde because there's so many Hispanic laborers that I dealt with and have had friendships with throughout the years. Right. That's just where that came from. So that is not so much a caricature as it's just a nickname, and we branded it and thought it would be fun to run with. So,
and then now you have Senior Verde.
And so now it's funny because my inner circle, jokingly enough, calls me Senior Verde as opposed to SE or Scott. We have one agent in the company that she's known me 20 plus years in the business, and she calls me Scott SE or Scottasy. Like fantasy. Yeah. Scottasy. And I'm like, that's not funny. She goes, ha ha ha, and leaves the room.
Let's add this to the 50-year plan because I know there's more than just the 40-year plan.
You're going to change my name again?
No, but when we get into doing like whiskeys, scotches, Scottish Edward.
That's a nice one. Scottish Edwards.
So it's a Scottish whiskey.
Scottish Edwards.
Or a Scotch.
There's probably already out there. And so I have so many different things I go by. Just like, whatever. I don't care. I really don't care. People think I care, but I really don't. I try to zero in on one because it was so confusing from the, reputation standpoint of nobody knew who I was in that name inside that inner circle, but outside that, I was this professional person over here. And so I had to draw the two together. But, again, it goes back to, you look at old documents, you look at all the old things, the old times, old ledgers and old signatures we do a lot with deeds that are super old and stuff like that in our real estate industry. All the men went by their initials on their legal documents and or even in society, just how they were called. They were H.L. Hunt.
Right.
And it was O.M. Boren. And it was that's just the way it was, And so it wasn't odd. Now we have names that are fragments of words merged together to create a name. And so,
or like famous Harry Potter characters that become named after Harry Potter.
There you go. Yeah.
Like Hermione. But I really wish we had like Chris Cornell's like, do you know my name playing as we're talking about this.
Oh, we can totally put that in the background.
We got to wait 60 more years.
No.
He just died.
I understand.
So it's life plus 60.
We'll just pay the royalty. What is it, like a
nickel? Oh my gosh.
Was it like a nickel?
Can we do that?
It's not very much, folks.
No, that's Chad Kroger.
No. It's not that much. Like, royalties aren't that ridiculous.
No.
So,
all right, that's cool.
Especially if you do a one-off.
Yeah.
Now, if we get 1 million views, that's a big bill.
Oh, yeah. For sure. But it could be worth it.
If we got 1 million views, it'd most definitely be worth it. We haven't scratched that surface yet. Yeah.
Cool. I just thought we started that because I was in the back room as I was walking through the office, coming to the front to do this. I saw Jamey with me, and I was like, well, tell me this boy doesn't have two first names. So it was cool.
So it was cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I just felt like if I didn't put Jamey in there on my Trek documents, everybody's just going to know me as James Whitley, and that's not everybody in this area knows me as.
Right. I think it's amazing that you can put a fake name on a legal document.
Well, I put it in parentheses.
Oh, because it's not like that online.
It's like James parentheses Jamey.
I do that a lot. On one of my email signatures actually says Scott S.E. Green in quotes like that. Just so.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you jump in here and lead the discussion. We'll try to keep it short and sweet.
Well, yeah, I guess like one of the things. Okay, so I'll give you an update on Real Estate World. So I had my first listing kind of within the first month.
I knew that.
Had a pending contract within the second month. And then the buyer backed out.
Ooh.
So I've really been looking at like land, and you being a developer and builder, and that's your main thing. How valuable is land to you is my first question. And then my second question is, how much do you allocate that in the budget before you start a development?
So there's some general rules to that as far as the latter part of your question. How does it end up in the budget? What's the line item that you can afford to do the land on? But I guess you also have to consider the projections of what the increased value may be once developed, as opposed to just the bottom line right up front. So I look at a number of different things, and I'm definitely not the most well-versed in this area. I just know what works for me, and so we try to do that. From a finished product, unless it is a long-term commercial play asset for me that I'm willing to invest in the land for a much longer period of time, I'm trying to be under 15% on the land. So 15% land, X number of percentage in the product itself, X number of percentage in the margin, fees, commissions, all the other things that go into the component of the deal. And then it's that you get to 100%. And those change based on the type of development. That kind of touches on the latter part of your question. The first part was, is land valuable? Yes, it is. I mean, it's the first piece of doing anything. So you either have to have land that's developed and needs to be redeveloped, which is great, or land that time has forgotten that's kind of surrounded. We call it infill property. It's either been demolished over the years, destroyed by fire or natural events, and now it's just laying there surrounded by other things. Those infill properties are difficult because a lot of times the value of an asset from the onset is derived from the value of the assets around it. So if you take an area of a community that has lost its value because it runs its life cycle, it's new, it's exciting, it's great, it's wonderful, it produces, and then it flattens out, and then it starts to depreciate over time because people migrate, people move. That part of town isn't that part of town anymore, and they move this direction or that direction. Every community has that. You can think about it like railroad tracks in a town. 100 years ago, the hub of town was the track. It's where all commerce came in and out, all travel in and out, right? And so those were the most valuable pieces of property in those communities at that time. Well, now they're not very valuable at all. They're being repurposed for green belts and walking trails and all that kind of stuff because railroad companies have abandoned those pieces of property. Now, they were small pieces. They were little slivers through communities, but out from that came commerce and came value. So now you think about the modern day railroad track isn't two interstates where they intersect. And there's a Buc-ee's, and there's a Lowe's, and there's a Home Depot, and there's a shopping mall. Those four corners, right? That's the big value. And then from there, it trickles down, and the uses change until you get to residential, until you get to the next intersection, and then it's all over again. It's really interesting if you'll go to like Google Maps and just pick any city, but I'm just going to say Dallas-Fort Worth, and you zoom out far enough, Dallas will look like it has these systematic white dots all across its pattern, all across its area, right? It's just white dot. And you're like, what in the world are all these white dots systematically placed around Dallas? So you double click and you zoom in, you zoom in, you zoom in, you zoom in, you zoom in. And pretty soon you're like, oh, that's an intersection. That's Knox and Henderson. That's 75 and Walnut Hill. That's because that's how the concentration works. And that's where you don't see vegetation very much. So you see the concrete and you see the roadways and you see the rooftops of those buildings. And so there's less green. And so it just looks like these little hubs. So the value of the asset at that point is where these hubs are. I said all that just to go back and close out my comment about the value being that it changes. And so what can you afford to pay for a piece of property totally depends on the end use and what the end use is for the investor or the developer or whomever. So can I afford to pay $1 million for an acre as opposed to $10,000 for an acre? Absolutely. Why? Because that $1 million 1 acre piece of property is going to be valued much higher than that $10,000 acre piece of property because of the use of the end product of what's going on there.
And then you can divide it up and sell chunks of that.
Yeah, or it's let's say if that 1 acre has a 20-story building on it, or this 1 acre has one home. Right. 200 million, 200,000. Yeah. Right? There's your number swing. So you can afford $1 million 1 acre if you're going to build a 20-story building. So it's relative to what's going to be the end use product. A lot of times you can afford to pay more today because you know that in 5 to 10 years it's going to appreciate. You're banking on the movement. You're projecting way out. looking at what's happening in the marketplace, gambling, so to speak, rolling the dice on really what's going to happen. And it's calculated, but it's still all risky. But any business is risky.
So if you're going to like build a subdivision somewhere, what do you look at before you say, hey, yeah, there's nothing out here right now? And you're talking about gambling. So you think, okay, cool. We may have this part of land. A developer just came in here and bought all this acreage, and it's rumored to say Top Golf is going to be on it. But you're like, cool, I'll go build a subdivision over here and hope that that's what happens.
Right.
But like, if you're in the middle of nowhere and you've got land, I mean, what makes you go, yeah, I'm going to buy this and take this risk?
So that's a market specific question, because in our market, you have many options with and without public utilities. And on the development side for residential, you don't always have to have public utilities in order to have a successful subdivision or a successful project, because you have a lot of rural water communities and small co-ops and things like that for water. You can always do your conventional or aerobic or drip septic systems, which treat your sewer per residence. It's not like a huge system. It's a single system per residence. And you can get away with doing propane instead of natural gas, et cetera, et cetera. So you can have viable developments in these rural areas that you really don't get the opportunity to do in metropolitan areas, because you have to go so far out of the metropolitan area. You're almost in the next metropolitan area by the time you get there, right? So here we have a little bit different opportunity. But the first thing I look for is the utilities. Who is the co-op water, or is it city utilities? I would much rather have a municipality utility than a co-op or something like that, because they're usually a little bit more formulated, a little bit more by the book, not so rogue in the way that they involve the developer inside the development experience. So
I guess they're also trying to improve the infrastructure.
yeah, so a lot of times a developer is used to improve the infrastructure in an existing co-op outside their immediate area, because those systems don't have to grow. But if you want to grow them, well then 2,000 feet back that way, the system's inferior. And although you want to make it great here, we're going to require you to fix all that back there to make it to the same standard as you're putting in, because that's 25 years old.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you end up spending money on outside of your property infrastructure to improve a system that you don't own, and just so you can do your development. But it pencils out and it makes sense, because you can get the density, or it's better, and it's a great working opportunity. But personally, I look for municipality utilities that I can tap into, even if I have to go a distance outside my property, working with that municipality to get those systems in place, because public utilities are always just a little bit better to me than trying to do, a 3-part system. So what does that mean? Public utilities inside the city limits of a municipality, you typically will have a gas system run by a large company, a water system and sewer system run by the municipality.
Right.
So you're dealing with those people there.
And also trash pickup, usually.
Trash and pickup and all that stuff's included, right? So you have to have all that stuff separated outside that. And then you don't have a gas company. You have an independent operator that's running propane out to customers, and he brings a little propane here and there. And it's a different system for gas, right?
Oh, I totally know about propane now.
Yeah, you do, right? After your little explosion moment. So public utilities is probably the first thing I look for. But
I guess, like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter really what someone's doing. I mean, you're looking for opportunity, just like any entrepreneur, and you're saying, okay, this is my opportunity, and these are the resources that I have.
Yes. Boom. Yeah, you got it. So it's like any product. What we're putting out there in the form of commercial, industrial, residential, it's still a product. It's just habitable by an individual, a family, a business, a corporation, right? It's a product. It's not something you consume. It's something that you use, and you use and you use and you use, and that's how you live your life as a single residence or a multifamily residence, or you conduct commerce and you run your business, you store your goods, you operate your door, you open your door, you close your door. So it's still a product. So for me, it's a product line, and I look at each individual tract of land that comes into our office for consideration. What is the highest and best use, which is a real estate terminology and thought process. What's the highest and best use? Well, it changes over time, but I look for the highest and best use for that property and I try to pencil that out for that particular tract, and it either looks like it has a reasonable margin and it's worth the risk, or it doesn't, right? So a tract of land that would be well suited for single family, because if it's topography and its geographic location and the lay of the land and the traffic flows, it's great, but it's in the wrong school district. So now it's more of a rental or multifamily community opportunity, because the school district will often drive whether or not families want to purchase there. So it can have the greatest topography, this kind of rolling and beautiful undulating land and north flat and beautiful trees and all that stuff. But if it's on the wrong road with the wrong water system and no sewer in the wrong school district, it's not worth it to me and to most. So we run into those challenges finding those pieces of property. And there's a lot of voluntary annexation we do when we go to a city and we say, hey, we want to do this development. Can we be annexed by you and get your services? And a lot of times they say yes. A lot of times they put up a hand and say no. So there's just so many different nuances to it. But the bottom line is, you're trying to find something that's highest and best use, suits the program that you're trying to put out there. And at the end of the day, if the product that you're producing is needed and wanted and desired by the community that you're marketing to.
So like, I know everything that you do is intertwined. Everything that's in your 40-year plan, that's connected.
Right.
So at what point were you building these subdivisions, these different properties, and you went, you know what? I want my own real estate company. Like why? What made you go to that? Because essentially it seems like that's intertwined, and kind of what was your motivation for wanting your own real estate company?
So it's not an original thought. I'm not the first person, first developer, first entity that said, hey, what if we had more of the action of what we're doing?
Derek Schilling, everybody.
Hey, my real estate partner. It's not so much about the additional margin that's available, although there is a small piece of that comes back into the real estate company, inevitably as CEO and owner, that benefits me, not in the short term because you've got a business to build, and so there's not profitability for many years in some cases. But it's control of the environment of how one's transaction is handled from point A to point B. So as a developer, I can handle how the transaction goes down between the developer and the builder because I'm the developer. I buy the property, we develop the property, we convey that property to a subsequent owner, or we self-build, self-construct, build assets, convey assets, and or hold assets, right? I can control that. When we were building and designing subdivisions for residential, and we had homes going on the ground, and we would just be like, hey, any old real estate company here, any old real estate company there. We never had control of the transaction as a seller trying to convey that product to the end user, the consumer. We didn't have control over that process. And so sometimes I, as an outsider looking in, would be like, oh, God, I don't know why they can't just get that through their head, do it this way or do it this way. And it's not that there was a right way, wrong way, or a better way. It was just my way. Right. And I wanted it to be a certain way so that I felt like we were representing the best deal to the consumer and the best deal to us. Like, I have to make money, but I don't mind giving you a decent deal. But I'm not going to take a beating so I can make a little money when I know that there's somebody else around the corner that'll do the same transaction you're doing with me, and you're just being a jerk. So how can we control that? Well, we can have our own real estate company with our own agents that do it the way we would do it, that treat people the way we would treat them, and we represent them on the buying and the selling side, and we just bring people into the fold on the way that we philosophically conduct business from point A to point B.
So how would you say philosophically you would want to conduct business from point A to point B? Oh, that's a really heavy question.
It's 3 words, dude. It's give, serve, repeat. I don't make money developing anything. I don't make money building anything. When do I make money?
When I sell something.
Eventually, he will sell something. No, really. The point of it is that we're in the business of the conveyance, the final conveyance. I can build 1,000 houses in a year, and if I don't sell any of them, we're in a bad spot.
Right.
Same thing with lots. You can develop 1,000 lots. You don't sell any of them, you're in a bad spot. So just having that control over the system to where we can treat people the way we think they should be treated, conduct business the way we think it should be conducted, and educate the consumer both on the buying and the selling side that, hey, seller, you can't just get everything you want.
Right.
And hey, buyer, you can't just get everything you want. There's a middle ground here. You want the house? We can help you get it, but don't treat this person like a third rate. And hey, seller, you want to sell the house? Don't treat that buyer like he doesn't know what he's doing. Like, there's a common ground, right? And it just seemed like there was always this emotion and pent up angst about the transaction because it's supercharged emotional. Because for a lot of cases, especially for small businesses, it's a big deal to buy a building. It's a big deal to sign a 10-year lease for a commercial space. It's a big deal to buy your first home or your fourth home. It's still a big deal. It's a lot of freaking money. And so it's supercharged emotionally, and we wanted everybody to be treated the same way on both sides of the transaction. And so I thought from a flow standpoint, we could acquire, develop, sell, and there's a fourth piece to that, which is the marketing, that's why we started the media company earlier this year. So we could do all of our own marketing for all of our own entities. So it's just a big circle of love. Give, serve, repeat.
So like what, before you had your own real estate company, like if you had like if you could say like the three,
oh, here we go.
3 pet peeves you had for local real estate companies or realtors in general, what were they?
Probably number one were buyers who were represented by agents whom, unknown to the buyers that they were representing, those agents treated the other parties with disrespect and downright anger. Do it my way. I can't believe you would conduct business like this. I mean, just puffing themselves up to be something super great and super above reproach. All the while, if their buyer had known the way they were treating the selling party, they would have been embarrassed and probably fired them. That's the number one. There's this level of disrespect sometimes, and I don't know why. Maybe it's like this. I think the word fiduciary duty or that connotation is maybe taken over the top sometimes. And so they feel like to be negative or to be badgering or to force your will of your buyer on somebody else is the way to handle it. And that's just not the way to handle it. And so, I mean, I don't remember how many times I held this phone away from my ear and was like, who do you think you're talking to? Right. Seriously? Like, you know what? Never mind. Click. I don't want to. Now that buyer lost because of the way that agent or broker treated me. Right. I'm not going to put up with that. I have zero time for that kind of stuff. Right. So it's bounced. And the buyer's like, well, why can't we buy that? And well, they were, who knows what they told them? But that was the biggest number one pet peeve was the disrespect to the other party. And it was continual. And that was pretty much across the board.
Wow.
Yeah. Sometimes to the tune of like, there are people that I've done business with in the past that had that attitude that get no love from me.
Yeah.
To the tune of like, if I see a contract come across my desk for an asset that I own with that company's name on it, I say, shred that. You know better. I'm not even going to look at it. And the agents are like, bro, you got to look at it. It's my fiduciary duty. And I'm like, okay, no.
There you go.
Yeah. It's a full price offer. Yeah, no.
Okay, so number two,
probably communication, which I have to raise the flag of I'm guilty because I was a poor communicator for years. I think there's still some areas where I lack communication skills, but I'm always striving to do better. But I think communicating expectations, especially if you could put communication in a little hierarchy, expectations is probably number one to communicate on the communication list. But then just staying in touch with the buyers and or sellers throughout the process so that one feels taken care of almost to a fault. You know, like when you're at a restaurant and that waiter just keeps coming by. He's like, you like more tea? And you're like, no. He's 3 minutes later, hey, you want some more tea? You're like, no, thanks. 5 minutes later, he comes back and you're like, no tea, right? Almost that kind of communication.
Yeah.
Like you just kind of want to be like, hey, Agent X, look, we know everything's great. We appreciate you taking care of us. Please stop calling. Right? Not so much, but borderline. Well taken care of, well cared for. Here's the update. Hey, it's Monday. We're 2 weeks into your deal. Just want to let you know everything is moving forward. Nothing's really changed. I just want to touch base with you and see if you got any questions.
Yeah.
Wow, no, actually I don't. Or yeah, hey, you know what? There's that thing in the backyard. Are they leaving that? I mean, like, because people have to be engaged before they're going to communicate.
Right.
And so I think communication and staying in touch with your buyers and your sellers when you're in that space is a very good thing to do. That's definitely number two.
Okay.
Yeah.
And number three.
Ignorance.
Is bliss.
No, it's not. It's hell on wheels with fire coming out of the tailpipes. So ignorance, not stupidity. That's a whole nother level of stuff. I'm talking about not knowing what you're doing, what you're representing, how you're doing what you're doing. Go learn and then show me the path. Yeah. Don't leave a contract blank. Don't leave information left off. Don't rely on the other party's representation to do your work, which happens a lot. Take your responsibility and your duty to that client on both sides of the transaction that you're representing, whatever side you're on, and do your freaking job.
Right.
Ignorance. People just leave stuff off. People forget stuff. People, they don't really know what they're representing. But they speak from a position of authority, but they don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
So if you're not an expert in roof condition or roof leaks, don't tell your seller that they need to replace the roof to put the house on the market.
Right.
And don't tell the buyer that you think that roof needs to be replaced because you can see from the ground it's worn. Get an inspection. Get somebody to go look at it.
Yeah.
That's just ignorant for you to do that. Right. You're setting yourself up for failure. And so ignorance just causes you to look foolish in the end. And so I think I would just challenge everybody out there that's in the space or thinking about getting in the space, don't be ignorant. Just know what you're talking about. And if you don't know, close your mouth and go ask somebody that does know.
Yes.
I am great at doing that. I love to tell people, you know what? I have no freaking idea about what you're talking about. But guess what? I have so-and-so over here, and he's an expert, and I'm going to find out before the end of the day. If it's not the end of the day, I'll let you know tomorrow morning just in case that person's not available. But we're going to get to the bottom of it.
Yep.
Nothing better than being transparent and open, which subdues ignorance, right? So, yeah, ignorance. Man, big top 3.
Ooh, those are good.
Well, I don't feel like my blood pressure went up, but I did get elevated a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
You know why? Because there's all these little memories in the back of my brain going around and round and round. As these things are coming out of my mouth, I'm reliving these moments.
Well, it's good because I'm going to learn from that.
You are going to learn.
Like when we talk about, hey, let's talk about the fears you had the first time you bought your home. Boom. You might as well lay down on the couch and it's going to be a therapy session.
Talk of what? How many what?
Like the fears you had.
Oh, the fears.
The fears.
Oh, I thought you said, how many beers did you have? I was like, before the podcast? No, I'm joking. Yeah, that's good. But so for real, you've got a great opportunity to, Derek, my business partner in the real estate thing, is a consummate salesman. He understands human emotion. He's a stickler for details and precision and lack of stupidity and lack of ignorance. Like he doesn't put up with it. He will just do the work for you as opposed to getting you to do it. He's basically not teaching you to fish on occasion. He's fishing for you. He's getting better at that. Sometimes it's counterproductive. And in our position, it can be very litigious to let somebody run amok. You can let somebody run amok to teach them a lesson. And guess what? You just got slapped with a lawsuit. Can't have it.
Right.
Can't have that.
Right.
So you have to be very cautious on how you do it. And he's tempered and trying to teach and train and that kind of stuff. And not every agent's new. But they have their own ways, and they want to come in and be a part of what we're doing. There's a little bit of tweaking there, but most of the time the lights are on, and all you got to do is just be like, "Hey, we put the chairs like this in the room. We don't really put them over there." Right. See, so it's a little bit of that, but yeah. But you're in a great place too. You're still young enough and untethered and hungry enough that you will fail. You'll hopefully take a big heaping spoonful of humility and learn and move forward and not stay in your ways and
that's why I'm glad like right now it's a slower time than say compared to the spring. So I am having to eat a big bowl of humility right now
because there's no money coming in.
Yeah, and so but I'm glad I can do that right now and make mistakes right now, and that way I can captivate when the hot time comes.
The hot time. Like
summer.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody wants a pool in their backyard because it just, it's a marketing tool.
We do have a couple of things going on. I mean, our company, the way Derek and I wanted to set it up was we just wanted to do great things for the community. And we wanted to be able to let people participate in that through their affiliation with us as agents, right? So we sponsor fun runs and 5K runs and stuff like that to raise money and awareness for certain causes that are important to us. We, as a company, and we do that because we really genuinely care, not because it's marketing. Of course it's marketing. That's why everybody does it. Eyeballs, attention, right? But it's a part of what we do and it's a part of who we are. So, those things for us are important and we want them to be important for every agent that comes on board. And if it's not important to you, you just don't fit the culture, and that's okay. That's okay. We'll build it one person at a time, and it'll slowly grow. And it's more of having an internal situation of representation than anything else. So if we get the outside business, that's awesome because we want to serve and repeat. But we're starting right here inside this core of control that we can say, hey, these people matter because they're our customers and we want to take care of them. And so that's how we do it. And as that grows and becomes more prolific in the marketplace, we'll win. It'll be fine. But it's the long game. You said 40 years. It's a long plan. But those are some of the specific things that come to mind when you ask about why, and what were some of the things that really over the years put me out. Now, let me just slip this in at the end here because I know we're about to wrap up. There were dozens of agents that I had delight working with over the years. They were not the majority or the lion's share of them, but there were a handful that were just like family. They were great. And I miss them sometimes now that we're doing our own thing. I don't get to interact with them very often. I miss them. They were delightful. They did their job. They knew what they were doing. They had human respect. I mean, they were just good people, and they did their job. And so props to you guys. You probably know who you are. But it wasn't the majority, and so that's why 88 Realty exists.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad you are.
Absolutely.
Here. Did you learn anything today?
I learned a lot.
You're learning a bunch every day.
It's a constant. Well, like yesterday, I mean, gosh, I wish I had that recorded.
What was yesterday?
When you and Derek made me forget what day it was. And I'm like walking in like, hey, I want to know about negotiations. And then like you guys convinced me it was Tuesday and it wasn't Wednesday and it wasn't even the right day of checks going out.
That's
and
right.
I was like, well, crap.
Yeah. Jedi mind tricks, man. This is what you're talking about is the situation where we talked about, there's some payroll yesterday and you wanted to talk about negotiation skills or something. And we completely convinced you that it was not the day that you thought it was and that it was not even the week that you thought it was. And we had you fully sold on our dialogue. That's salesmanship.
Sounds like I need to listen more.
It's black magic. Don't worry about it. We put a spell on you. That was funny. Yeah, that was a funny little incident there. But cool, man. Well, I'm so happy to be back in the saddle doing this. Holidays are here upon us. We're all busy. We're all having fun. But at the same time, we got a lot to keep going and we can't stop. Just because there's only 20 business days left in the entire year, which blew my mind. I think a week or so ago I did the math, and it was like less than 30 weekdays in the year left to do commerce because you got so many Saturdays and Sundays, and then you have 2 days surrounding Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. That's 6 days, just like that, right? So, yeah. Because both the big holidays fall on a middle of the week. Christmas and New Year's Day are both in the middle of the week. New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, so they're both bam, bam. Less than 20-something days or 20 days left in the whole entire year. Unless you work 24/7 like I do, and then, pretty much doesn't matter. I'm kidding. I don't work that much.
I try to. I got no choice right now.
That's right.
Which means I got to get on a call with a guy about some land actually in 2 minutes. So
great. Well, I'm glad we got it wrapped up. Anything else?
I think that's it.
Cool, man.
So excited for what's ahead. And yeah, glad we did this. Can't wait for next week.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. We appreciate you, and thank you, sir. We'll catch you later on.
This is the Everything I Know podcast. I'm your host, Jamey Whitley, here with S.E. Green, Senior Verde, Scotty Edward.
Scottish Edwards.